Record. There we go. Awesome. Uh, well, welcome everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Ayan Moladina. I serve as SEED's Federal Policy Director. I am a high school sophomore in Austin, Texas. And a hot take that I will give as my introduction is that Austin is the best city in Texas. I do not take any other arguments. So that's me. And I'm gonna pass it over to Cameron to introduce themselves and SEED.
All right, I am Cameron. Pronouns are they, them. I'm the executive director of SEED, which we are focusing on a variety of educational policy issues, including of which is mental health, suicide prevention, and safe firearm storage.
Awesome. And we can go around to our panelists and do our introductions, your name, pronouns, titles, organizations, age or grade, wherever you go to school, location. So just a general overview of that. And then also the question for you all is why you and your organization support firearm safe storage. So we can start with Isabella.
Yeah, hi. Thank you so much for inviting me. So, hi, I'm Isabella Sparts. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am the founder. I have a platform called the Young Texan where I really try to engage civic engagement within youth and getting everyone to go out and vote and do their civic duty. I'm also a part of Students Demand Action. I am the Texas student liaison for Moms Demand, so I essentially connect both of them. So without we have, better stuff. From there, I actually just graduated college May 2024, and I'm 20. So I'm an alum from the University of Texas at Dallas, go Comets, and I'm from Houston, but I'm currently living in Dallas. So I have to rival that Houston is better. Sorry.
All right, we have beef there. Serena.
All right. Hi, I'm Serena Ray. I'm a senior here at Austin, senior in high school. I'm 17 years old and I'm the founder of Austin Youth Gun Violence Awareness, more commonly known as Youth GVA. It's kind of a platform for both art advocacy and policy awareness. And I'm also an intern at Texas Gun Sense, and safe storage is super important to me, especially as a student, as it is something that can be so easily changed within households that can have such large of an impact. And I will have to agree with Ayan on the fact that Austin is definitely the best city in Texas by far, not even close.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that. I really appreciate having someone on my side. Milan, you're up.
Yeah, my name's Milan Narayan. My pronouns are he, him, his. I'm a junior right now at the University of Texas at Austin. I'm also from Houston, so I've had kind of the experience of both Austin and Houston. My loyalties still lie with Houston, unfortunately. But Austin's amazing. And so I'm an intern at Texas Gun Sense. I've been involved in the sphere for the last 5 or 6 years or so. And kind of similar to what Serena said, it's gun safety and safe gun storage is really important to the organization and to me, because too many children, too many children at schools, at homes, get injured, wounded, or killed because of insecure gun storage, and it's so easy and fixable, with proper legislation and proper narrative building, and so we really feel like this is an important headway into the safe gun storage and gun violence prevention movement.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for being here. Thank you for being with us and for all your work in this space. It's so incredibly important. And it's so amazing to bring youth activists together who are working on this incredibly important topic, because we know that we're so much more powerful together than we are separately. So thank you all for working with us. And now we'll talk a little bit about what the Be Smart campaign is, and Isabella will talk about that.
So, like I mentioned, I'm a part of Students Demand and Moms Demand, but our parent organization, you could say, is Everytown for Gun Safety. So, Everytown for Gun Safety actually started a Be Smart campaign, which is essentially raising awareness about responsible gun storage that, can save anyone's life, not just children, but anyone. So essentially what safe firearm storage means is really keeping your firearms unloaded, locked, and stored separately from ammunition in a secure location that is not accessible to children. So there's 5 steps to this program. The first step is, securing all guns in your homes and vehicles, making sure that you model responsible behavior around guns. I think with social media, we don't see a lot of that. So we really want to be an advocate for being a responsible gun owner. You want to make sure you ask about the presence of unsecured guns in other homes. This is unfortunately a way that many children can get injured. So it's definitely up to, any guardian to be asking about that. We also want to recognize the role of guns in suicide. Unfortunately, self-inflicted gun violence in suicide is the highest rate of types of suicide. And then from there, we want to, spread the message, spread the narrative, tell all our peers about Be Smart. So yeah, that's just a short summary of that.
Thank you, Isabella. Yeah, that's so important. And I will specifically highlight one of the things that Isabella said, which is that we have to recognize the role of guns in suicide. We know that the majority of suicides do involve a firearm. And actually, a lot of times when we're talking about gun violence, we forget to talk about suicide, but the majority of gun deaths are suicides. And so it's really important that we would talk about both of those issues, that we understand how they intersect. And one of the biggest protective factors against suicide that we have seen is safe storage. Not only does safe storage help with suicide prevention, but also prevents accident prevention, so that children don't have access to firearms and don't accidentally inflict injuries on themselves or someone else. And so what is safe storage? Isabella definitely touched on that, but there are a little bit more specific. There are lots of different ways that you can securely store weapons. A lot of them listed here on the left-hand side of the slide. There are many different ways that are affordable and accessible, that include cable locks, trigger locks, biometric locks. By far the best way to store weapons that we have seen, research shows, is gun safes. They are the least accessible in a case of like a child wanting to access those weapons. While other methods are still effective, like trigger locks that cover the trigger, and then barrel locks which go into the barrel. So there are many different avenues that you can take. Some are as cheap as $15-$20, and then get more effective as you go up in price. And you definitely want to find the right fit for you, because we know that some methods like trigger locks can not easily, but definitely can be tampered with. Definitely still, prevents a child from accessing it. But if the goal is to prevent maybe theft or something like that, then maybe something like a gun safe would be more effective. One of the myths that we often see is that storing firearms safely defeats the purpose of owning a gun in the first place, because it puts barriers between the gun owner and their means of defense. What we've actually seen, like I touched on, is there are many affordable options for firearm storage that actually provide the firearm owners with quick access to the guns, while still preventing access by children, people who are at risk of harming themselves, or just anyone who's unauthorized from touching those weapons. And it is possible that unsecured guns may actually increase the likelihood of crime and violence through an increased risk of gun theft, which I touched on. An estimated 200,000 to 500,000 guns each year are stolen, and most of those get funneled into the underground market, where once legally owned firearms can be transferred to people with dangerous backgrounds. And so really, we see that safe storage not only helps with suicide and accident prevention, but also homicide reduction. And there was a lot of data that came out of Johns Hopkins University on this as well. So we have seen the effects of that. And now I will pass it over to Milan, who's going to talk about why safe storage is important.
Of course. Safe storage is important for a plethora of reasons, and we've talked about this. Even in the last 5 minutes, the number of firearms that are stolen every year, the number of accidents, the number of injuries. But one thing I want to specifically talk about are schools in Texas, and school shootings, for example, in Texas. So in the 2022-2023 school year, TEA, so just the public schools and just the school districts that encompass the public schools in Texas, reported 381 firearm-related incidents to the TEA. So again, that doesn't account for private schools or any other schools that don't report to the TEA. The 381 incidents is a remarkable number. It essentially means there's over 2 every single class day on a school campus, 381 incidents. That's a remarkable number. And one of the things that we talk about is that for a child to have access to a firearm, it means that somewhere along the lines, some adult has failed them in terms of, say, firearm storage. So it's so important. Like we saw in the Appalachia shooting, like we see in so many different shootings. The median age of all school shooters since Columbine is 16 years old, according to the Washington Post. And then even the Secret Service, they found that 3/4 of all school shooters acquire the firearm used in the shooting from their parents. So it is so important for parents, for guardians, and for any responsible gun owner to be responsible and to securely store their firearm, just to ensure that we don't see these accidents, we don't see intentional school shootings, we don't see unintentional shootings. It's just so much safer. And there's so much data that indicates that states and cities and regions that have safe gun storage are much safer. The unintentional shooting rate is much lower, and the school shooting rate is much lower as well.
Great, thank you, Millen. Now Cameron is going to walk us through two things. They're going to walk us through how you can support the Be Smart campaign that Isabella talked about, and also how you can begin getting involved with safe storage resolutions in your school districts.
Thank you so much. So there are two main ways here that we feel can be great ways for advancing safe storage of firearms. And that can be urging your district to communicate information about safe storage to families. This is something that they can do voluntarily. And there are resources out there available from the U.S. Department of Education and other materials and resources that we can definitely share with you in follow-ups. And that is to streamline the communication between school districts and families, where families can now take that information and adopt practices that will be best for the children in their homes, and then also for anyone else. Because as Be Smart outlines, this isn't just about what happens on that individual level, but interpersonally in other homes as well. And that can be really crucial if school districts communicate this widely and far to all of the community members that it has its reach with. And sometimes there might be a really great opportunity if you can start advocating in your school district to advocate for a resolution about this. And so there are many different ways that school districts can tackle these issues. And so that is where we begin about learning your school district's process of how they adopt and propose resolutions. You can usually find this on the district's website. Usually there's a section on the website relating to the school board and its operating procedures and how you can reach out to them. It's really great to make that direct communication with staff in the district administration, but also with the school board who may be making those decisions, directing the administration to accomplish this. Maybe the administration already have that power and agency and the discretion to create these initiatives to communicate to families. Maybe that's something the administrators can already do. But if your school board does need to get engaged, that's where they can adopt a resolution. And that can be done by really reaching out to your school board and starting the conversation, creating that direct communication where you make that clear ask that we want this information about safe storage to be sent to families, and we want this to be in a resolution that is incorporated in an upcoming meeting. And so that ask, if very concise and clear and feasible, you can explain to them that this is something that can easily be accomplished and that this is something that community members will have big stakes, but also interest in accomplishing. And then also that this is going to best serve our communities, that this doesn't necessarily have to be a political issue or politicized issue, but rather something that is going to support everyone and most importantly, save lives. So tips on this can be to explain your why. Why is this important? Outlining that feasibility, that this is possible, and then having data, which we're going to get into momentarily. And we are also happy to help organize this with you, providing any sorts of support or guidance that you may need. And so you can certainly reach out to Ayan for making that connection.
Yes, please do reach out. All of the people who registered and who are here today will receive a email from me, so you'll have my contact information. We'll also send out the slides, and my contact information is on the slides. It was on the last slide. It's just Ayan, AYAAN @studentsengage.org. So feel free to reach out to me anytime. Thank you, Cameron, for that. And Cameron also mentioned the importance of having data. And so Serena is going to walk us through the importance of data and talk through some data with us.
All right, hello. So, as Cameron mentioned just a little bit ago, knowing the facts is super important as you approach issues like this, as it can make your claims more reputable and kind of provide a solid basis for the ideas that you're trying to pass along. So, having some statistics in your back pocket can really help. Obviously, you don't have to know all of these, but knowing a few that you can kind of stick with in cases of advocating for issues such as providing safe storage communications in your school district or any other sort of safe storage advocacy that you're pushing for can be so valuable. So I'm kind of gonna go through these a little bit. So a big one is that 4.6 million children in the US live in a household with at least one loaded and unlocked firearm. This is a crazy, crazy statistic, and it is something that in being brought up can really show the degree to which this issue is something that needs to be more talked about and more widespread, that we need to support safe storage communications in the future. And in Texas alone, an average of 430 students die by guns every year, and 36% of these are by suicides. So this issue is something that is super widespread. In addition, more than 1 in 3 of American households contain a gun. This kind of goes hand in hand with the previous statistic, and 54% of these gun owners that do have guns in their household do not store all of their firearms properly. Once again, something as clear as a simple communication could be the change in this initiative. Just one email, something like that, and your effort advocating for change can really be that difference to change these statistics that are so crazy to look at as we kind of look into the statistics behind this issue. In addition, 3 in 4 school shooting perpetrators used a firearm taken from a parent or close relative's home. This was mentioned earlier by Milan when he was talking about some of the issues that go hand in hand with why this issue is so important in the first place. And in addition to this, in nearly half of these shootings, the firearm was easily accessible and was not secured properly. We see this over and over and over again in headlines and news articles, but it doesn't seem as though large change has been happening. So once again, any small effort can make a big difference. In addition, unintentional injury is a big risk with unsecured firearms, as 67% of these firearm deaths among children happen simply when a child might be playing at home with a weapon or trying to show it to someone else. There needs to be an emphasis put on the idea that weapons are not toys, and by securing these firearms safely, and it can be as easy as Ayan was mentioning earlier, a $15 solution, we could prevent deaths from occurring. So continuing on, I think there's another slide. Yeah, okay, perfect. Households that both locked firearms and ammunition were associated with a 78% lower risk of self-inflicted firearm injuries. There's a significant correlation in securing firearms and the lowering of deaths. It is so significant enough that it proves reason for safe storage resolutions to be a key part of agendas for both organizations like this and any students in the area that you know of, or any students in general. There is an 85% lower risk of unintentional firearm injuries among children just by promoting safe storage policies in general. In addition, each year an estimated 200,000 to 500,000 guns are stolen, many of which are funneled into the underground market, and this kind of leads to the perpetration of the circulation of guns throughout societies and communities, and this can all, once again, be prevented through secure firearm storage. as most of us know, the leading cause of death for children currently is firearms. But to coincide with this, the second leading cause of death for individuals under 18 is suicide. A lot of firearm deaths are by suicide, as we saw earlier. So it is super important that we change these statistics. These statistics are just baffling. And again, these two things go super hand in hand. Firearms are also the most common method of suicide. As I was previously mentioning, almost 60% of these suicide deaths are by firearms for all age groups, not just youth. This is not an issue. While it is more widespread among youth, this is not an issue that is just reflected in one demographic. It is a widespread issue. And lastly, 700 children die by gun suicide alone every single year. And most of these are used by a family member. It is super important that you, if you're an advocate, are equipped with all of the facts and know the backgrounds behind the things that you are fighting for, as it allows for a very strong basis, as I mentioned previously, to the claims that you are making.
Thank you, Serena. And yeah, I 100% agree that when you're doing this work, when you're working on the resolutions in your districts, or whether you're doing advocacy at the state and federal level, whatever you're doing, having this data behind you that you can share with people in power that that you can put behind your cause, and you have a better context of why you're doing this work, it's so important. So thank you for sharing all that with us. And next, we will talk with Milan about how to garner strong support and stakeholders for the resolutions in your district.
Of course, and thank you. As Serena mentioned, having data behind you and being grounded in the quantitative aspects of, why safe gun storage or gun violence prevention is so important is really crucial when you're going to talk to politicians or to other lawmakers or to other people that you want to become involved in the movement as well. But what's also important is making sure that you have an emotional appeal and emotional aspect as well. And one of the things that I have found, at least in my experience, when talking to politicians, when talking to, for example, on the screen, pediatricians, to school faculty, is that everyone has been affected by gun violence. Whether you have to think about it for a second or a minute, we've all been affected by gun violence in some way or another. And one of the things that I like to say is that even though gun violence is disproportionate, it does not discriminate. So it's important for us to have, for example, student voices at the table, because so many of politicians or other people, they see us and they see their own children. And when presented with the statistics about how many children are at risk in homes that have insecure firearm storage, or how many children have been injured or killed, whether it's news stories, whether it's media, when they see these stories and when they see this data, it's so disheartening and it's so striking. And it really does help to get people involved in the movement because it's really something that's so fixable on an individual level. There's a plethora of evidence and data about the effectiveness of safe gun storage and policy, but oftentimes it's emotional appeals that really help push over the top. So when we're trying to garner support and stakeholders, one of the things that we have to do is, when we're talking to people, we have to get them to go to school board meetings. We have to get them to go talk to local politicians, to state politicians, because that's where most effective advocacy can happen. So Texas Gun Sense, for example, one of the things that we did in the last legislative session is that we introduced an amendment to HB 3, which in essence, it mandates that school districts across Texas send out safe storage information to all parents and guardians of school children. And it's really important stuff. It's kind of started with Houston ISD in 2020. And it's really important. But what we've seen is that there isn't really strong compliance across school districts over the last year or so. And tracking data on this is a little bit iffy. So one of the things that's so important when we're talking to people is telling people and encouraging people, go to your school boards, ask whether the school districts are doing this, and encourage them and essentially, tell them that this is a state level mandate. And people, really respond to that. School districts respond to that. And it really goes a long way to helping ensure that our message gets spread further and further, and we can, effectively secure firearms and create healthier and safer societies.
100% agree. Thank you so much for that, Milan. Yeah, I completely agree that it's so important to make sure that you're meeting with people and having them come with you to testify, and then they don't just have to be students. Yes, students are super important. Bring all your friends, bring all your peers, and make sure you have other folks on the same page with you. Bring your teachers, bring your principals, bring school faculty, bring child psychologists in the community, bring pediatricians. Feel free to cold email anybody that you know in the community and be like, this is an important issue that we're working on and we need your voice. And I promise you, you'll hear back from people and they will support you in what you need. All right. And next up, we're going to hear about what if the resolution doesn't pass. And Isabel is going to talk about that.
Boy, what if the resolution doesn't pass? Well, let's pretend in a perfect world in your school district, the resolution passes. Amazing. Let's first make sure, because that's the first step of, putting everything into work. You want to make sure you pass along all your resources so that you're able to hit the ground running and start doing the work you need to do in your district. However, a different scenario is, what if the resolution doesn't pass? That's good. That's fine. We can try a different governing body we can try to influence. So say the resolution didn't pass in your school district, but there are different creative solutions other than just passing the resolution. An example on the slide is having the school board sending a letter at home. You're still passing along your information and you're still getting the word out there. It works. Or if you don't want to do that and you still want to pass a resolution specifically, try a different governing body. You could try your individual school. I think, especially if we're looking at school districts and it doesn't work there, you could try a different local governing body. So if you're, say, from Houston, go to the Harris County, your commissioners or the Harris County judge, see if they can do a vote on that. Or say you live in a city itself, go to your local city government. Or say you're a dual credit student and you're also with a community college, try to go to your community college's student government, or say, your university student government. There's a plethora of areas you can try to get this resolution to pass. But again, the best place to start is where you have the most connections, and most likely this will be within your school board. Yeah, passing that along.
Oh yeah, absolutely. 100% agree and think that it's super important to, find all the different avenues that you can advocate through. Start at your school board, but, complement the work that you're doing at the school board at the school level, right? Talk to your principal. And like the resources we shared that were sent out by the Secretary of Education, a template for principals to send out this information to parents. Go to your principal, say, this is a template released by the U.S. Department of Education. Would you send this out to all the parents in the community? And I think that's so important that you can do advocacy at that level, at the school board level, at the city council level. City council can also, work on secure storage campaigns and things like that and pass legislation on that issue as well. Isabella also mentioned going to your commissioner's court for the county. That's super important. A lot of people underplay the influence that commissioners courts have, but they actually do a lot and govern your entire county. So look at those different avenues that you can take. And again, for all of this, I'm happy to support and help you find which avenue would be best. So feel free to shoot me an email, and I'm always happy to connect you with people, figure out what avenue would be best to take and things like that. And now I'm going to talk about our federal policy agenda, one of the bills that we're working on, which has garnered a lot of bipartisan support. And basically what it would do is require certain middle and high schools to include instruction on secure storage of firearms. Basically everything that we've talked about today, the data, everything like that. Why is it important? What is the intersection with suicide prevention and unintentional injury prevention? And things like that, making sure that we're starting those values from a young age, but then not only that, but then that is being coupled with action at home. So this legislation would also require that resources be sent home to parents to make sure that what's being taught in the classroom is also being put into practice in the home. And so this is a really important piece of legislation that we've received a lot of bipartisan support on. It will be introduced into Congress in the coming months. And it was modeled after bipartisan legislation that we saw here in Texas, introduced into the legislature in the last session, and in many other states as well. So if this is something that you'd like to be involved in, again, feel free to shoot me an email and we can get you involved in any way that you'd like, whether that be working with congressional offices, working with other organizations. We're happy to have you involved. So that's one of our biggest pieces of legislation that we're working on that I think really ties in a lot of the work that we're doing. We do a lot of work on suicide prevention. We do a lot of work on gun violence prevention. And so this is really special in that it ties in the two separate issues. And so, yeah, that's that. And now I will pass it off to Cameron to talk a little bit about our state policy agenda.
Thank you so much. So in the state legislature yesterday, there was a hearing of the House Committee on Youth Health and Safety that covered HB 3, as we had mentioned earlier in this webinar. And the testimony here on the left is what organizations came together in our coalition in Texas to submit this written testimony, and we had many advocates testify. This was during the interim charges period of the legislature, which only operates in the spring of odd-numbered years, and the interim between those sessions often is quiet, but they will have hearings that cover many of the issues that are pertinent to the now of Texas, what's happening outside the sessions. A lot of it is to hear from constituents, even if they might not listen to us. So that's our job, to make sure to pressure them and build our advocacy. But these are opportunities for us to make our voices heard in these committee hearings. And these have happened like just yesterday. There'll be many opportunities for this on a variety of issues. And so we will keep you posted on anything that relates to gun violence prevention, to safe storage, to mental health and suicide prevention. And a great way to get more involved, as the session will begin in January, so just a few months away, we will have another session, which will last from January to May. And the Texas Legislature Changemaker Bootcamp is our all-new program in partnership with the Youth Democracy Lab. It's going to be an incredible 10 hours of action-based learning during October. And so it's spread out throughout the month. It's going to be a great way to connect with others all across Texas on a virtual platform here on Zoom, and to connect with one another, develop ideas for how we want to engage in the legislature. Beyond skill building, we will have the ability to actually introduce legislation of your own, which could include anything regarding these topics and subject matters. And to cap that off, it's also going to be stipended. So you have the ability to apply and receive a stipend for your participation if you are missing work shifts, or if you're under the poverty line, or a variety of other reasons. Many people will be receiving stipends because we know how crucial it is to compensate students for their time, especially as we become the leaders of today, not just of tomorrow. And we are active change agents right now. And that is really crucial to breaking barriers to participation in democracy. Because right now, is the United States a democracy? That could be up for discussion, and that could very well be something we talk about in the Changemaker Bootcamp. It's on the application form. You can make your pick there. So we are going to dive into all of these different topics. The priority deadline had just passed now, but we still have many spots open. We got about 15 people so far, so we are aiming to get about 30. So we're definitely right on track for recruitment. So if you feel like you might be a little shy to apply, feel like you might not necessarily be a great pick for this, now you most definitely are. If you're at this webinar, then that means you have what it takes and have that passion and have that interest in doing the work that's necessary to better our Texas. So you will be a perfect fit for this application, for this program, and for making change in the upcoming ledge session. So that's going to be a deadline at the end of this month, and we look forward to you applying and being able to make this, to be part of this great program, which, following the program, as you graduate through October, you will have the opportunity to match into a job that could be working for an office in the spring, in the Capitol, or working for a nonprofit, or in an advocacy position within SEAT. And so that job matching will be a great way for you to launch a career, or take this further during your school years, in engaging in the legislature. So we look forward to having you apply.
Awesome. Thank you, Cameron, and thank you to all of our panelists. Before we hop off, are there any questions for the folks who are here, for our panelists? It's okay if not, we are always available afterwards. I'll share my email address again in a second, but want to open up the floor just in case there are any burning questions that need to be answered right now. All right. All right. Well, with that, there's our website. There's our get involved form. Again, my email address is ayaan@studentsengaged.org. Feel free to email me anytime about any of the content we covered or anything else. We're always happy to have you involved and really just give you advice, get you engaged, really let you lead your own projects. If you want to write a bill in Congress about anything, whether that be gun violence, suicide prevention, anything else, feel free to shoot me an email and we'll make that happen. With that, that concludes our program. We look forward to working with all of you very soon. Thank you so much for being here. And we'll make sure to send out the recording and slides right after this. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night. Thanks, Giovanni.